So when I submitted my concept note for this talk, I described myself as a Colombian undeaded. Let me just see if it works. Yeah, I described myself as a Colombian undeaded, unemployed, bachelor graduate with an internet addiction. I'm surprised that they still ask me to speak today after such a description. But following with the theme of great expectations, I'm here to tell you about how the internet is influencing our society. There are 4 things that I think are very important to look at, which is how it contributes to the definition of personal identity, how teenagers are getting lost in the virtual world, how the internet is changing the ways in which we learn, and in general, how it has changed the overall social expectations. I read some scientific research on how our personalities and our moral values are not actually solely determined by our neural structures. They are also determined by the environmental inputs, the things that we live through, the things that we are exposed to when we're young. Ethan, for example, is a 21-year-old internet user who grew up on an acre in Indiana. He has a Tumblr of the address perspicacity at work. And growing up, he had many questions in his mind, which he knew that he couldn't ask or that he wouldn't find answers to on his farm. So what did he do? Like many of us, he just went online. And he read stories about homosexual men and women who had happy lives. This showed him that he too could grow up to be happy, and that times were changing, and that being a gay man in today's world was not as bad as it used to be. Although in Ethan's case, the internet actually helped him to find his identity, the problem is that in some cases, the internet is making people lose their identity or not come to realize who they are. The reason I think this is happening is that when we portray our lives online, we choose specifically what it is we want to show. So what we see online of other people's lives is not reality. It's just a constructed version of what we expect our lives to be like. Therefore, we're coming to a bit of a problem nowadays. We have internet users who think, act, and look the same. Now, if everyone's losing their identity, what's going to happen 10 or 20 years from now? I don't really know. But I think it's very sad that we're coming to a time where we have spectators that are just looking at their own lives and actors in their own lives. The journey of self-discovery includes learning, obviously. But there are other kinds of learning as well. The internet is also changing the way in which we learn at universities, at schools. There are group works, conferences, workshops. Everything can be held online nowadays. I don't think I need to explain to the students in the room the controversy behind the use of Wikipedia for an academic paper. I mean, that example is self-explanatory. But there are good things to be said about the use of the internet in today's world. For example, there are distance learning courses that allow you to get a bachelor degree in 4 years, just like you would without actually having to go to class every day for 4, 5, 6 hours. And at the end of the day, you're learning just as much. Another example is another Tumblr user, Brandon, who, when I asked him about his interaction with the internet, he told me that he considered internet relationships to be real relationships, and he considered them to be part of the real life. Because a lot of people talk about, I haven't met this person in real life, but actually, just because you're using a machine, it doesn't mean it's not part of real life. It's still part of real life. There are just parts of them that you can't see, that you can't understand, because they choose to portray themselves in a specific way. So his conclusion is that the internet is real and that the relationships that we construct on the internet are real too. Now, if we look at the last point, which is the general social expectations that there are today, I thought it would be more appropriate to give you a personal example rather than just take an example from someone else on the internet. So when I was 12 years old, my parents divorced. I'm originally Colombian. But after the divorce, I moved to Europe with my siblings. One of my sisters is sitting in the audience. My other sister and my little brother. And then 2 years after that, I came to Rosey at the age of 13. And 2 years after I moved to Europe, in my first year in Rosey, I got a mysterious call from my mother. She was in tears, and with a broken voice, she told me that my father had been arrested. His photo appeared on the homepage of Spanish newspapers, it appeared on the BBC website, it appeared on the CNN website, and the articles that had been written about him made him out to be a cold-blooded murderer, a drug dealer mastermind, and all in all, a monster. He was not at all the man that I thought he was. I also found out that someone in my old school in Colombia had gone online to find the $5 million reward poster that they had issued for my father, printed it out, and posted it around the school for everyone to see, because they thought that reflected on what my sisters, my little brother, and I were going to grow up to be like. I was terrified, and I thought the same thing was going to happen here. So I expected my friends to just tell me, stop being my friend because you're just a drug dealer's son. I mean, what kind of person are you going to grow up to be? There's no hope for you. But I can honestly say that never in my entire life I have been happier to have been wrong. Because I learned that my friends value me for who I am and not for my parents' mistakes. The teachers at the school told me that because my father made a mistake, it didn't mean that I was going to do the same mistakes. I took a giant leap of faith at the end of the day, and I embraced the pain, the anger, and the confusion of what the truth turned out to be. Ever since my father was arrested, I have tried to live my life with my head held up high and be honest about it. As a drug dealer's son, I was expected to follow his same career path. I was expected to become a violent adolescent. As the son of an inmate, I was expected to be bitter about life, maybe even hate my father for having done what he did. And as a boy stuck in the middle of a divorce, I was probably expected to objectify women and to just become a rebel and not care about my life. But I haven't done any of those things. And the reason why I haven't done them is because I chose to reject the expectations that society had of me, and I decided to create my own expectations. When I applied to Harvard, for example, I had to write about someone inspiring. And I decided to write about my dad and about the day that I went to court in the Eastern District of New York to hear him be sentenced. When my father was given the chance to speak, he read out a letter that he had written to me on behalf of the rest of my siblings. And the one thing that he did in his letter was apologize. And he apologized to us for having put through so many hardships. And he apologized to us for having put us in the center of social criticism, of discrimination. He told me that from the bottom of his heart, he was sorry that he had tainted the family name. But the truth is, I understand my father, and I understand why he did what he did, and I respect him for it. And ultimately, that's what the internet has shown me. I too have found myself and my identity with the help of the internet. I too have gotten lost in the picture-perfect Kodak moment frenzy of online celebrities. But there's a problem with this. I don't want you to get me wrong and think that I'm saying that crime pays, because it doesn't. Crime destroyed my family. And I don't want you to think that I'm saying that we shouldn't have social expectations and that we shouldn't have a moral value code, because we do. Without them, we wouldn't have evolved into the social species that we are today with a passion and a thirst for knowledge and development. What I am saying is, let's embrace the great expectations that society has of us. And let's use the internet as a tool to discover and find ourselves. But remember, as much support and words of comfort that I found online, the internet didn't bring my family back together. Love did. And love should define your expectations too. Your life should be moved and empowered by love. The love of the things that you do, the love of those around you, the love of yourself and of the life that you have been given. Because with the power that love will give you, no hardship will ever be your end. No any obstacle will be your last step. And at the end of the day, the real great expectations that matter aren't societies, or the internets, or even our parents. The real great expectations that matter are our own. Thank you very much.